Pathmonk is the intelligent tool for website lead generation. With increasing online competition, over 98% of website visitors don't convert. The ability to successfully show your value proposition and support visitors in the buying journey separates you from the competition online. Pathmonk qualifies and converts leads on your website by figuring out where they are in the buying journey and influencing them in key decision moments with relevant micro experiences like case studies, intro videos, and much more. Stay relevant to your visitors and increase conversions by 50%. Add Pathmonk to your website in seconds. Let the AI do all the work and get access to 50% more qualified leads while you keep doing marketing and sales as usual. Check us on pathmonk.com. Welcome to today's episode. Let's talk about today's guest. We have Stephen Kuban from the routing company, head of growth with them. How are you doing today, Stephen?
I am doing fantastic. Nice to be here in Esto.
Likewise. Thank you so much for being on with me. And well, Stephen, I'm sure our listeners are tuning in, wondering what the routing company is all about. So let's kick it off with that. In your own words, tell us a little bit more.
Yeah, well, first of all, we're pretty unique, I think, and we're operating B2G in terms of our business, and our buyers are public transit agencies. So, well, the buses that you're thinking about, we deliver technology for people to run their buses. So that could be microtransits, which is kind of like Uber for the bus. It's kind of a new thing. It's come out in the last 5-10 years. Or paratransit. So our American listeners are going to know all those short little buses that are driving around. So those are paratransit services. The routing company provides the software that helps you effectively know where those buses should go in real time, sharing the trips with other people, just being easy to use and efficient. So we're really focused on selling into governments, public transit agencies. We're very vision driven here in terms of making a difference for people who just need those transportation social services.
Okay, interesting. All right, love to hear that. So then what would you say then, so that way our listeners could get a good understanding there of the routing company, what would you say is a key problem then that you guys like to solve for clients?
Yeah, well, I mean, without going too deep into the weeds of public transit as a whole, accessibility in public transit is a big issue. I mean, you have all these buses, but if I'm in a wheelchair or if I'm walking with a cane following an injury, how do I get to that bus? It's not a solution that is easy to come by, and there have been solutions that have tried over the last 30 years to make it available, but it's just really expensive to operate. Many folks are sort of using spreadsheets to say, oh, Susie needs to get to her appointment, so let me figure out, can I get her to ride with Joe over here? There are softwares that are just incredibly hard to use that have been around for about 30 years. And the teams that operate this just really struggle with making it efficient. How do you make it efficient? And how do you make it easy to use when you have hundreds or thousands of riders and you have hundreds of vehicles? So the challenge has been to take that accessibility and bring it into the 21st century. We have Ubers out there. You can get picked up in a few minutes. So how can we get somebody who might not be able to walk to a bus to get picked up in 15 minutes as well in a way that doesn't break the bank and is being careful stewards of the public funding money that's out there? So efficiency and same-day responsiveness is so critical for not just accessible riders, but for riders who don't have a bus that's near them. And so that's the problem that we're looking to solve. And our technology is out there making a difference for millions of riders.
All right, that's great to hear. So then, I mean, like you mentioned, it's B2G, really focused down. Don't want to assume here, but what would you say then is your vertical segment that you guys like to go for? Then is there an ideal ICP for you guys?
Yeah, we do. So we sell primarily to public transit agencies. So you can think of MARTA out in Atlanta. You can think of Kitsap Transit. You can think of BART, all the transit agencies you're familiar with. They are typically the buyers, but there's a wild stratification in the size of these public transit agencies, right? New York City Transit is very, very different than, say, Fairfield Transit out in the San Francisco area. So our ideal client profile right now fits into an organization that has a medium-sized scale of service. And for us, medium size in terms of the number of vehicles that you're trying to route every day. So if you're operating between 20 and 60 vehicles at the same time, you're in the sweet spot of it being too hard to do by hand and it being an appropriate size that you can scale up your teams and make a big difference without breaking tons and tons and decades of process.
Okay, interesting. Love to hear that then. So then how would somebody that usually find out then about you guys there at the routing company? Is there a talk Line Exposition channel for you guys?
It's a great question. So again, in the government space and in public transit specifically, we all joke in the industry, public transit is massive, but it's tiny. People who come into public transit, you stay. So those folks have been around for decades and kind of everybody knows each other. Not really, but kind of. And so more importantly in our industry than in most is being a part of the community, being and offering thought leadership. So we really value providing new ideas and a new direction for age-old problems. And the industry is so small that these ideas can proliferate. So our channels are very commonly speaking at conferences, attending conferences, and just seeing the same people, going to the receptions and building your community through the community you already have. On the other hand, you have like smaller agencies that don't necessarily go to these conferences, right? But they know from the zeitgeist that new solutions like the routing companies exist. That's where SEO becomes very important for us. We're a small organization that doesn't have the name brand recognition of a couple other competitors in this space. And so we promote aggressive SEO campaigns to direct folks to our website where they can learn more and ultimately download case studies and see exactly how this is working for them.
Yep, that's very important. I love that strategy there. And so that way, then our listeners who are tuned in can go ahead and visit you guys. They could always check you guys out at theroutingcompany.com. What role then would you say the website plays for client acquisition?
Well, the role is essentially twofold. First of all, it's establishing credibility.
Yep.
And credibility in public transit is different because credibility often comes from peer recognition and speaking the nuanced language that public transit officials use. So we have to make sure our rhetoric, our position, the problems that we're proposing to solve, those are real things that have been spoken about across the industry for the last decade. And so establishing that credibility there is number one. People need to come to the website and say, yes, TRC, they know what they're doing. But secondly, and of course, what we all are thinking about in our positions as growth leaders is converting credibility into pipeline. And so our website, we are using not just for contact forms, but we're experimenting with different ways of generating valuable, interactive engagement on the website that is essentially lead generation. And I can talk a little bit about the techniques we're beginning to experiment with.
Yeah, definitely. Let's talk about that, right? What would you say then is some tools or tips or methods that you would recommend to our listeners?
Yeah, so I've been using this product, and I can give a shout out to the folks over at Story Lane. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Story Lane, Ernesto.
No.
Story Lane is a cool interactive demo software where leveraging both HTML or various screenshots, you can present a guided demo of the technology to the users. And it can be open-ended or it can be very on wheels. So what we're in the process of right now is building short, punchy, interactive demos that users can go onto the website and get a feel for what that product looks like. We believe very strongly in the usability and the usability of our product and that it solves a niche. It doesn't make sense to gate that value behind intros and meetings. Why can we not just put that out there so everybody can touch it, feel that, because the product really sells itself and then gets people in. So that's one technique we're using is getting that embedded, ties directly into our CRM. Really, really cool stuff.
Yeah, we have something like that as well on our website. We don't use Storylane, but definitely giving them an interactive demo of what it is definitely is a right way to go. So love that that you mentioned that as well. And well, then let's switch gears then a little bit, and let's talk about you as a leader, Stephen. You being the head of growth there for the routing company, what are some key tasks you like to focus on in your day-to-day work?
I am managing so much earnest though. So, I mean, my mandate is not just overseeing new business marketing inbounds. It's overseeing existing customers and the expansion opportunities we have there. And I tie directly into the product. And so on my day to day, I mean, it's more of a week to week because I am managing all of this. We have a team of about 10 folks on the sales side. We're small and we're managing the performance of those folks with regular check-ins. But more than that, I'm a leader who's also on the ground because I believe there's nothing better than leading by example.
Yep.
And so I maintain my own pipeline. I maintain my own relationships and I assist my team in sort of an executive fashion in some of theirs. So I'm on client calls. I just came from a client call directly here, and I have another one right after. And what's been really interesting, Ernesto, is on the day to day, being very strategic and reflective, and saying, "Am I spending too much time internal?" And managing the amount of time we spend on internal meetings. We're a completely remote organization with no centralized head office. And so you're balancing how you communicate and share your updates against your ability to be out there delivering. And so we've pushed towards a very async model. We've been integrating some AI tools that are able to process all the stuff we do on Slack, in our HubSpot, in our Jira, in our emails, condense that AI into sort of daily briefings that were shared across the org, where we can say, here is the latest you needed to know yesterday. So that is starting to show an ability to reduce the time I'm spending on my internal management so I can be focused externally and building and managing my pipeline. And that software we're using is called Village Labs. Excellent. Highly recommend.
Definitely important. And I mean, love what you mentioned at the beginning, right? Lead by example, jumping from calls to calls with clients. I mean, that shows a lot for your team, right? Like, oh, okay, he's willing to do it. He's not just going to stand back there and just kind of dump off the work on us. So I love to hear that as a leader. But then, so in your between time, then Stephen, when you have some time available, because it sounds like like you mentioned, it's a week to week thing. How do you like to stay up to date with all the news in the marketing world as far as trends, strategies? Is there a preferred channel that you like to go with?
Honestly, I'm still developing in that area. So I am very open to like these podcasts are a great opportunity to be learning and finding that. But I am very keen to be finding how to deliver that. I've struggled finding the B2G, areas.
Okay. All right. All right. And so then, then let's switch to our next section then here, which is our rapid fire question rounds. Are you ready for them?
Let's do it.
All right. First off then is, what is the last book that you read?
The 100-Year-Old Man Who Climbed Out of the Window and Disappeared. Sometimes as a big busy guy, I need just to unwind and stop working my brain. And that was a fun one. Fun book to read.
Was that a movie? Was it a movie as well?
I don't know. Maybe it was. I don't know. It came out in 2005 or something like that. It's just like, I don't know. It's almost this like satirical comedy following a guy with an absurdist life. But it was funny. It didn't take my energy. So it's just good.
That's always good, right? Something is that there's some books, right, that you want to read and it just drains you. It takes a couple more reads than a fun book. So awesome to hear that then. Next up then is, if there be no boundaries in technology, what would be that one thing that you want to have fixed for your role as a marketer today?
Generating inbounds through consultative outreach. I mean, maybe that sounds like a bit of a paradox or oxymoron, but we want people to be coming to us, and but I think the most effective way to come to us is for it to be about them. One of our core values at the Routing Company is it's about you. It's not about us. And so how do you have personalized about you content that brings people in? And so it's always finding that balance between doing your research and understanding somebody and making sure that what you're positioning on your website or your material is able to easily be translated to my individual problems as a potential buyer. So how do you make that happen? That's what I wish I could just solve. And I bet AI probably has a way to be doing that in some capacity, leveraging cookies and knowing who you are and tailoring content in some specific way. I'm sure it's going to come. I'm waiting.
All right, you'd be surprised. That's awesome. And well, the next is, if there's one repetitive task that you could automate, what would that be?
Booking my travel.
Is it
managing my itinerary, booking my travel, and just staying on top of administrative things.
no,
Yeah. Last month I was on the road for 33 days in like 15 different cities, and I was like, I can't keep booking this.
that could get a little bit tricky, right? It's another job booking everything for that many days.
Yeah.
And then, well, lastly, here, Stephen, I mean, you have a lot of experience already in the marketing world, but what is that one piece of advice that you would give yourself if you were to restart your journey as a marketer today?
Yeah. Going back to something I just said, it's about them. It's not about me.
Okay.
And what does that mean? That means understanding the dichotomy of personas who may be engaging and being able to tailor your content to attract and direct engagement in the way that's most meaningful to them. Do you want an executive? Speak to an executive. Do you want a dispatcher or a day-to-day user? Speak to the day-to-day user. And abstract your company out of it so that you can become a trusted source that they turn to when they have the problem. You know what I mean?
Yep, totally would agree with you. Some great advice, not just for yourself, but for all our listeners that are tuning in today. And well, we are coming to an end here, Stephen. But before we do end, I do want to give you the last word. Say someone forgets everything about the interview today. What is that one thing they should remember about the routing company?
We have a vision of how to transform accessibility and equity in public transportation. It's a long road to make that happen, but we are positioned to make that happen so that you as a rider are able to use public transit as a means that's attractive to you.
Okay, interesting. Love that. And to our listeners, check them out at theroutingcompany.com, powering flexible, efficient, and convenient transit for all you out there. Hey, well, Stephen, I do want to thank you so much for being on, as well to our listeners for tuning in. And I'm looking forward to our next episode at Path Monk Presents. Thanks a lot, Stephen.
Thanks for having me.